not be taken in the same order as shown on this meeting notice, unless removed from the consent agenda. Item with identified within the consent agenda will be acted on at one time. Roll call. Board Manager Terry.
Present.
Board Manager Vickers is absent. And Board Manager Johnson. There's 2 members here and 1 member absent. We do have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments. Okay, we'll go into closed session. Consideration of personnel, consideration of employee contract, prudent to Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, Assistant Principal, Marlin Elementary School, Assistant Principal, Marlin Middle School, and Director of Special Education. The time is 12:02. $12.49. All right, next thing on the agenda is the open session. Consideration of possible approving of an assistant principal, middle school, Marlin Elementary School, assistant principal, Marlin Middle School, and director of special education.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that we approve the hiring of elementary assistant principal being Julisha Jefferson, and the middle school assistant principal being Sharon Deloach, and the director of special education being Jesse Bustamante. I might have said that incorrect.
I second all those motions. Do we have any discussion with it? If not, we're ready to vote. All in favor? Raise your hand. 2-0 with 1 absent. Motion passed. All right, number 8, Superintendent Report.
Yes, Board President Johnson, Mrs. Terry, Mr. Vickers, and his absent. What we have for you today as part of the Superintendent's Report is going to be a comprehensive look at a few items that need your attention immediately, from our calendar to our instructional materials to the 2020-2021 budget. So we will begin the report starting with Mr. Lawrence Galloway, Chief Academic Officer, who will go over instructional material allotment and English language arts adoption.
Good afternoon, President Porter. Today we're going to present to you for your consent as we look at our adoption, which is typically on a biennial funds that are allowed to us to buy new content, material, and textbooks for our students. So this year being the 2021 school year. We're in the second part of that biennium, and it is suggested that we we're in the second phase of budget year 2021, that we do a new English language arts adoption, English 1 to English 4, which is, I may refer to it as our 9 through 12 ELA adoption. But we're also doing a little backtracking, a little back work to make sure that we acquire all of the materials that we needed from our budget year of 2020. So we get an allotment from TEA every 2 years. So like I said, we're in our second year. In this 2-year allotment, we got a little over $164,000 from TEA, and then we go through the adoption process. We work with the committee, we look at the approved vendor list from TEA, and then we make a selection. The committee vets all of the new teeth against the actual textbook materials, and then we go through a similar bargaining process to make sure that we get the best for our students when it comes to online materials, consumables, teacher's edition, things like that, to make sure that we service all students equally and equitably. From this allotment that we received last year, we did make some purchases prior to this school year. And these are the 2 pieces of material that we have purchased: automotive books and Marlin Elementary textbooks and materials. So based on these numbers, this estimated remaining funds of that $164,000 is about $95,000 that we will have to go through this adoption process to obtain these materials. We're working, and we're actually out for bid some of our English language art materials, as well as some of the other materials that were in that adoption that we didn't acquire in the first year. So right now we're working through that process of talking to vendors. It's kind of like we're having them fight over us for the material so we can make that purchase, because it's such a large purchase. And we're trying to get the best bang for our buck for our students to make sure they have current, relevant ELA materials and some other subject areas like personal financial literacy and other ELA electives. So we're looking for consent to make sure that we can basically send out for bid to these vendors. You may know or have heard of things like Pearson, H&H. These are the types of individuals we have reached out to get materials for our students for this upcoming school year. Any questions?
Regarding options for starting the school year, we'll have Ms. Stacey Parker, Director of Student Services.
Good afternoon, President Johnson, Board Trustees, Dr. Henson. We recognize that our district schools and educational agencies will need to consider 3 concurrent streams of work as we plan for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year. One is defining our return, determine multiple paths for return in the next school year with the express intent to address the needs of all of our students. We need to reimagine, which is to rethink the way learning and teaching are designed so that the entire community can thrive. And then to revamp, to actually build agile and responsive practices to support all students and families in a time of this crisis. So we've dove into looking at a few reentry options for our districts. Plan A, looking at schools opening with a minimal need for social distancing. Everyone come back as is. Plan B1, schools open, but that we definitely have a significant need for social distancing. Plan B2, we open school, but we also utilize that alternative calendar with both remote and face-to-face opportunities. And then schools do not open and we continue with remote learning. Those are the options that we have at hand. In the graphic, kind of tracks the risk factor and the equity factor for each plan, knowing that a more traditional plan of just coming back pose higher risk in terms of the pandemic that we're in, but it's definitely more convenient as our normal. Looking at the plan B1, opening with significant social distancing, lessens the risk, but it still falls as a high risk, but there's greater equity and accessibility because we would have all students. When we move to plan B2, where we reopen with a hybrid model, we move into a lower risk, but we may have some challenges that we face in terms of ensuring equity and accessibility for all of our students. And definitely a plan C would definitely be the most, the lowest of the risk because students move home, but it's a less convenient in terms of the educational implication. So we looked into designing a priority timeline. So for the month of June, we spent delving into 2 steps of our plan, identifying the knowns, the unknowns, and building those scenarios. We sent out a stakeholder survey that Dr. Hisson shared at our last board meeting on calendar options that our stakeholders preferred. And then we developed that calendar around those options. We will spend July recognizing consistencies and prioritizing. We will look at those scenarios and actually dive into micro plans that cross-functional teams will put together. And we've identified some key players in our district that will work on those plans. And then we'll spend the latter part of July and into August communicating those plans with all of our stakeholders and also marketing our various instructional options out to the community. We also received inquiries from our community in regards to the dress code policy. So within our plan, we talked about the dress code, and we've decided to go with a relaxed dress code for K-12 in compliance with guidelines that we will set forth with our dress code policy. We are going to encourage standardized dress, so that we encourage that they do wear traditional polo style top and khaki bottoms, but that decision will be on the parents and the family. And our goal is to provide this dress code policy that does encourage a culture of learning, promoting scholarly appearance, preventing disruption, and minimizing safety hazards. Are there any questions?
Is there, what's the possibility of splitting students of coming back?
So
The possibility
doing
of,
Like
like
maybe
in-
9 through 10, just at the high school.
so by splitting, you mean having some come back at a certain time and
then
some
the
come
other
back a
one
later
come back,
time?
yeah.
So we are going to look at that, at all the reentry options, knowing that the high school is not at capacity. We have space within that building.
That's on my next one. How many students do we have in one classroom?
So right now, the enrollment overall at the high school is 219. We're going to try to staff at a ratio of 20-1. So 20 students in a classroom. Now, some, as in your CTE class, will be a lot smaller, but just your standard core course, we're going to try our best to keep it around 20-1.
and with those micro plans, that's where the campus principals and those teams are gonna come together to design what they look like in the classroom, moving desks. We're looking at open, flexible spacing in some of the larger areas. And so that's where they'll be fine tuning just to ensure that we're still in compliance with CDC guidelines. With the return.
So my other question is about the dress code.
Okay.
Everybody can just dress whatever they want to dress in.
Click on the policy, please, because we still have expectations and guidelines that will clearly outline that they cannot come wearing anything. It's within this sandbox or within these parameters, you can dress, but definitely not free dress.
Yeah.
It's relaxed.
Yeah. Relaxed meaning that we know that it may be a hardship with loss of employment due to COVID for parents to really buy uniforms, and so they may have to come if they are, but we did outline the parameters, so we still have the standard. If you come, you cannot have shirts with vulgarities or advertising tobacco or any illicit products. Skirts and shorts, hemlines need to be appropriate. Shirts, with sleeves preferably, but then there's some definitions of sleeve width. We know in Texas it's hot. Caps and bandanas, so things are on a respectful nature. We still have these guidelines of items that we won't prohibit, that we are prohibiting based on its inappropriateness, but definitely if they come with some nice jeans and a nice shirt, we're not going to deem them for not being in a uniform style.
Just for the the elementary also.
Elementary, middle, and
They've been in uniform.
Yes, and we did receive inquiries. Some parents were inquiring. So if they want the uniforms, I know like Walmart have sales on, if they choose to do that, we wanted to tailor it to
It's
where
cheaper
it
for
meets
both
their needs,
plans.
but
Both
that they're not
plans.
feeling appropriate.
And that's why we are going to provide the options, but we are going to encourage the polo and khaki pants.
Yeah.
So
good.
that's what we're promoting. We're just fully aware that some parents may have lost their job due to COVID. Instead of saying go buy a completely new wardrobe, whether it's free dress or uniform, just wear what you have. Because I'm more concerned about getting your child back into school and give them an education, and then that added stress of buying uniforms and school supplies if they could have lost their employment. But we are going to encourage Coach Johnson that the students do come in the traditional uniform of the polo shirt and khaki pants. Next, we will have Adam Lejeune, Director of Technology, to go over the Wi-Fi expenditure.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So the goal for our district is to have one-to-one student devices, either with a Chromebook or an iPad. That means every student has access to a technology device at every point every day, with also the ability to bring that device home. And this is to both provide for what we see as the needs of our students, and also if there are any situations where we need to shift back to a remote-only sort of learning environment, we would have the ability to send those devices home with all of those students as well. Right now, we have basically few high-power antennas, which have great speeds if you can get a connection, but they're sort of far apart. If we lose one for any reason, then we lose a large chunk of our Wi-Fi coverage, and they are hard to manage, and in fact would require an additional expenditure to be able to manage them effectively. And what we are proposing is to have more low-power Wi-Fi antennas, each classroom, in fact, getting one that students in that classroom can connect to, which will greatly distribute the network load and put less work on each individual access point, which then leads to a strong, consistent bandwidth across the entire district inside of the campuses. And then if one goes down, it's not a huge hit to either our finances or to the actual capacity of the surrounding access points. So some slack can be picked up by rooms adjacent to the one that might be down. In fact, room-to-room Wi-Fi is considered best practice in the instructional technology sphere. So currently, we have already approved an ERate expenditure of our 6th year ERate category 2, which if you remember was for internal connections. But that was only able to cover about a third of our actual needs. The ERate decided to extend a 6th year to analyze program changes before implementing the next batch of funding. So we were prorated with just that small amount. We only paid 15% on that, about $22,000 that we're getting, and it's based on a per campus, based on student count. So with that money, we are buying 23 access points at elementary. It covers about a third of those classrooms, 9 at middle school, 14 at high school. And our price for that first batch is only $3,265.35. This was already approved and it's in process. So the rest of that coverage would need to come from an additional expenditure. What we did is I used the RFP that selected our vendor for the previous one, which was board approved, and I extended the room coverage out and got with them and figured out what else we would need based on their original proposal, which did cover everything. And so we would require 35 extra access points at the elementary to get Wi-Fi in every room, 19 at middle school, 10 more at the high school. The extra cost for that would be $36,216, right around there. And that is to complete the build out that would cover every classroom with consistent, strong, highly available Wi-Fi in order to keep up with our student device demands starting next year. Are there any questions?
So I wanted to talk to you all about the year-round designation for our district. As school systems prepare for the 2020-2021 school year, planning should be grounded in addressing the lost instructional time from the extended COVID-19 closure. School systems should also plan for additional disruptions due to COVID-19 as we continue to monitor the state of the pandemic. And then school calendars are local decisions with changes being thought through and authorized locally. So as we know, there's been some instructional impact to academic achievement based on COVID. The projections suggest that there's major academic impact known as the COVID slide. As you see in the graph where students were attending the traditional year and learning, the academic progress was on a trajectory upward, but then schools abrupted closure called the COVID slowdown, and then combined with traditional summer loss, we termed COVID slide, showing an actual potential of a decline in academic process. And so past and potential future disruptions to COVID-19 based on the traditional calendar systems could result in a continuous decline in academic progress of students. And so we want to make adjustments to our academic calendar that will support instructional continuity in the event of additional disruptions due to the pandemic. So when we're looking at calendar options, and understand that our calendar options must address the likelihood of short-term disruptions and high student absenteeism. Adopting a COVID-19 response calendar option with an earlier start date for school and predefined breaks would be the best to meet the needs of Marlin ISD. This is based on research, TEA's guidance, and the stakeholder survey results that were presented to you at the last board meeting. We in Marlin ISD proposed to modify our calendar to a year-round designation. And over to the right, this is just where TEA provided some benefits to what that might look like with an earlier start date where we can have some built-in remote learning time and staggered, possible staggered in-person attendance, which the question alluded to earlier. Also using those intersession breaks to offer remediation, acceleration, and then covering our traditional bad weather days and makeup and any makeup that a potential future shutdown could provide. So according to TEA guidance, according to the Texas Education Code, school districts may start school prior to that fourth Monday in August, either through a District of Innovation plan or a year-round system designation. Because Marlin ISD is not a District of Innovation, we would need to secure a year-round system designation in order to be able to alter our start date. TEA has outlined the following option for districts interested in changing those start dates for the 2020-2021 school year. And so according to the Texas Education Code, we may move up that start date with the year-round system designation, and we must operate during a portion of at minimum 11 to 12 months. And so in order to obtain that, we would need the board first to approve our designation as a year-round system, and then upcoming, Dr. Henson will show you the proposed calendar and to have that approved as well. And then we will notify our region service center who will do the report to TEA updating the change to the year-round system designation. Are there any questions?
Dr. Henson, did you say you talked to coaches about the athletic part of this?
Yes, sir.
How did that go?
So I'm speaking to the coaches. This is not going to offset anything that they do. So if we are on intra-session and they have practice, their students still come to school to practice if normal.
Could they have 2 days doing it?
Yes, sir.
Practice a day?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Board President Johnson, Trustee Terry. So what we have is our options for the 2020-2021 school calendar that were presented last board meeting. We have decided to go with the majority of the groups that selected calendar B, which was the intersessional calendar. What we have are the major notable dates of that calendar that we're asking for your approval on today. Our staff will return July 27th, with the first day for our students will be August 3rd. Our fall intersession, which will be for the small group of the intersession or the acceleration, will be August 26th through 30th. And then the spring intersession will be March 8th through 12th, the week prior to spring break. The last day of instruction is slated for May 28th, with teachers' last day being the 2nd of June. Can you put that calendar, please, Adam? If we look at the actual calendar, all those previous dates, they were mentioned here. This will show in the red the beginning and ending of grading periods. The blue are your traditional staff professional development days, with the green being holidays for faculty and students, and the orange or gold color being the acceleration time. It's also important to note that for most months from August to February, we do have at least one staff development day, which we utilize for teacher training and preparation for the next grading period. Everyone will be on a 6-week calendar. We're out for the whole week of Thanksgiving as well as Veterans Day. The holiday break in winter will remain unchanged. That is still a 2-week break, allowing teachers 2 days as they return for classroom setup, and then of course professional development. Martin Luther King holiday, planning day, professional development in February, with the last day of school being May the 28th. We will verify with the state that that day can actually stay, and that we do not have to go into June 1st to reach that in the additional time. Any bad weather makeup days, we do have enough minutes built into our calendar to absorb some, but if anything happens as it relates to COVID, we will utilize that first and second week in June to do any bad weather or COVID related makeup days to still fit within our calendar and adhere to the 11-month requirement. The workday calendar for employees. Our cafeteria staff will return August 3rd to May the 28th. There might be some small adjustment with the actual work calendar. For our 187, which is our mainly our campus staff, so teachers, nurses, aides, cafeteria workers, and receptionists, that's July 27th to June 2nd. 207, which will be our assistant principals and counselors, July 13th to June 16th. 226, the majority of your administrators, central office, and/or campus-based leadership will be July 1st to June 30th. And then our maintenance team, which does work throughout the winter break, Thanksgiving, and spring break, they have 260 days, and they're also July 1st through June 30th of next year. Are there any questions as it relates to the calendar or work days? The 2020-2021 org chart as presented last meeting, I have made a few adjustments, and now we should be able to kind of zoom in for you and scroll and make it clearer opposed to last time. So we notice, please, we have the board of managers and then the superintendent. On this side, we have the chief academic officer, Mr. Galloway, and I placed actual positions of people, not duties. So we make sure who reports to who. It makes sense. Chief academic officer will supervise principals, assistant principals, and campus staff. The director of education and now our CTE director will all fall within the academics side of the district. Also reporting to the superintendent, who will have the athletic side of the director. The other side will report to, of course, the high school principal. We have our maintenance director, his team, and then our chief of police will report to me. Our director of student services, everything that has to do with students, campuses in the community, in the district, will fall under Stacy Parker. She will supervise transportation as well as PEEMS. We feel that PEEMS and coding and compliance is critical here in Rowan ISD. That'll all be worked under Mrs. Parker. So coming down, we have our Chief Financial Officer and her entire team of food service director. We have a vacancy for HR benefits specialist, and then our accounts payable and purchasing. And then Director of Technology and Network Technician for the superintendent, and then our Falls Education Co-op director. This director of Falls Education Co-op will work closely with our in-house director of special education. Any questions on the org chart for 2020? Next, we will have Mr. Galloway presenting on behalf of Ms. Lewis.
Good afternoon again, Board President, Trustee. I'm very proud of my yellow note card and my walkthrough with Ms. Lewis today to present to you the budget. So please feel free if you have any questions, let me know. I hope I can take them back. But the first part that we're going to present to you is the proposed budget that we would like for you to adopt today. Adam, if you'll click on it. And I'm going to just point out some highlights in the budget that I think are pretty significant. One of the main things, we do a comparison between the 1920 budget and then the 2021 budget. And if you'll scroll to the bottom, to the right, a little bit more to the right. Keep going. Can you go ahead? That's it. Even with that's fine right there. Yeah, line 35. That's it. Even with Dr. Henson's proposed projects as of today, the budget has shrank from the 1920 budget by $83,000. So that's a savings that we were able to bring back to the district. Notice I say with these projects today. I'm sure y'all heard some of these projects that we're excited to be a part of, but we definitely wanted to highlight the shrinking part. Another thing to highlight is another significant event that he does want to participate in, and there was an increase that we're going to do from fund balance in the future, and he'll explain that project to you at a later date. But we wanted to make sure that we highlight these two very important pieces. But in the last piece is, being that it's June, we won't have the finalized tax revenue dollars until July when they certify home values. So right now we are adopting the budget based on projection, but then we do go back and do an amendment and update that budget in July to make sure it reflects our projected revenue. You can go back.
Mr. Galloway, are we submitting a balanced budget?
We are submitting a balanced budget. We are able to, yeah, we are submitting a balanced budget. We definitely have some projects and things that we want to do. We have some work to do, definitely. We have enough money to do a lot of these projects to make sure students are academically successful. And we shouldn't have, I don't think we have any concerns, speaking to Ms. Lewis, we don't have any concerns about any irregularities or anything with our budget, but we should be presenting to you a proposed budget that will be adopted, being a balanced budget that is adopted for the 2021 school year.
And the money you got back is from what? How did you get that back?
Say it again.
Is that what you were talking
In terms of the $83,000 that were currently in the black, basically what did we skim off of or cut in order to recoup $85,000 or $83,000?
So it's different variables. Different variables come to staffing, the differences in salaries of individuals that you may have. You may hire a teacher with 20 years, a teacher with, with an average that we kind of use the middle of the road. So going back, definitely having those resignations of higher paid, more experienced teachers, I would say, that will make us drop the average back down. So some of those things save the district funds significantly. Then also not having so many projects within 1 year, maybe spreading them out over a 2-year period also decreases your budget. So a lot of those things help with that significant increase. And we're hoping to see by the end of the year, when we are this time next year, June 2021, that number is a lot higher for you all to see that we are shrinking the budget and still doing the best we can.
Thank you.
That was my question. The next part is the final budget amendment for 2019-2020. For the final budget amendment to make sure that we balance out all of our accounts. It should be in the budget packet. This will balance out 1, 2, 3, 6 accounts. She wanted me to definitely point out to you that the year-end in commodities, the second to last line, is to balance out that we're pulling from fund balance is 50,000 to balance that transaction out for food service. So that's the only impact that it will have that will affect the fund balance. So this is our last budget amendment for the 1920, and as we get ready to close out as of Monday, well, the Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday, thank you. And we're asking that you approve that final budget amendment for the school year. Yes, sir.
So the budget amendments for the community and for the board members and myself, funds were transferred and adjusted from money already within
Yes.
the allocated funds. We're only going into the fund balance, $50,000 for child nutrition.
Correct.
Okay.
So to make it clear, and I guess I should have done this prior to 1 a.m. and should have probably color coded the 72,000 negative as a red. She took money from a lease purchase that we did not utilize. We did not utilize all of those funds to adjust the previous 4 transactions above it. So we didn't go into the fund balance from that. She pulled from one expenditure that didn't happen to balance it out, but then the only time we go into the fund balance is for the second portion, the $50,000 for child nutrition.
And the plan is to begin having a honest running total of funds that we are saving and adjusting, so we can see the bottom line. The goal is to probably do what we're doing here, more of a shifting of funds, because I'd rather give children what they need, and a little bit of what they want, instead of just stockpiling taxpayer dollars. You know, if the residents say, we pay you these taxpayer dollars, just make sure that they have the technology, the one-to-one, we have the painted buildings, so that we're spending our dollars on our students instead of more of the adult pat on the back of saying we saved money. You know, everything has to be aligned strategically to what our students need, and right now our needs are great. But I am glad that we are able to kind of move money around without having to dig too deep into the fund balance.
Maybe just tell me a little bit more about that. I don't have a problem with the 50,000 going to the fund. Tell me a little more of that, what that need was.
So with child nutrition is a federal program, and with the child nutrition program, it's our free reduced lunch for students. And at the end of the year, typically those funds need to balance. I mean, it's to show that you're spending those funds on the child nutrition program, meaning you're buying ovens, you're buying cookware, you're buying tables, you're doing things for those students. So probably this increase, and I'm taking a broad, not a broad guess, but a highly informed guest talking with Ms. Lewis. Part of this is due to shifting from traditional lunch to having to go to bag lunch and additional services and additional hours, maybe paying individuals overtime pay. So from the month of March until we, stop serving. So we had to shift, hours had to be worked. We may have had to purchase some additional food commodities and things like that to make sure that we're servicing our community.
Okay.
But I'll give Ms. Lewis to provide you.
That's all right. That's all right. You did what I wanted to.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson, Trustee Terry. So what we have is the Takeoff. The Takeoff is going to be the district's strategic plan. So everything, all the ideas that we kind of mentioned that we want to talk about, and what we feel needed for Marlin students, we're going to brand it under the Takeoff. A lot of times you hear the phrase, hit the ground running. That's not fast enough. You hear the phrase, go at it with a sprint. That's not fast enough. Here in Marlin, we need jet fuel. And so in order to get our students where they need to be, not now, but right now, we have to truly have an airplane mentality that's going to accelerate us so fast to take off and get us caught back up with our peers, because our students deserve it and they deserve it right now. So this will be a navigation plan to elevate Marlin ISD. It's also going to align the vision of where we want to be. It's going to align what we want to do, the plans, the steps, and then how we're going to get there. So today I challenge the team we have to make sure that we're working strategically and just not working hard. So everything from our Lone Star governance goals, to our campus improvement plans, to our district improvement plans, to how we operate will be elevated and organized and packaged under the Takeoff. So for the first phase, so for phase one, we're gonna give you a rundown at the board workshop on July 13th. Our plan for current and immediate facility needs and renovation. And as we go over the goals, you're gonna see that it's not just good enough to provide kids with a 21st century education. It has to be in a building that sustains 21st century learning. So phase one will be facilities and renovations, but I'm excited to give updates periodically on the takeoff and to get everyone within the community involved on what it is that we are truly about to do for students here in Marlin Heights. And that does conclude my superintendent's report.
Mr. President, I just wanted to make a comment while I was listening, especially back to your part, Ms. Parker. I just wanted to tell you guys that you're going to be surprised. And whenever we were talking about uniforms and school supplies and, you know, the burden that it puts on all the families, you're just going to be, you just will not believe what gets donated for school supplies in Marlin. And we're trying to do, I say we, I'm part of it. So I'd be one of the folks. I'm not saying I, at least. But anyway, we have groups that want to give backpacks to everyone. We have groups that wants to buy paper. We have group, you know, we have all different groups want to help with those school supplies. And so what we're trying to do this year through the Chamber of Commerce is all those folks that want to give, all get together so that we're not duplicating. You know, we don't need 2,000 backpacks, you know, or whatever. But I just wanted to tell you that I'm just appalled at what comes in as donated school supplies. And of course, you know, we try to give it to the children, and what's left we'll certainly bring to the schools. But I'm just, my mouth's always open about how many children can come by, and we want them to come and pick up those school supplies. But and I'm talking, if I start mentioning, you know, I'll miss someone, but I'm talking about the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm talking about Walmart, and I'm talking about HEB, and I'm talking about different organizations in town that want to contribute to that, along with individuals that, you know, folks that do not have children in school anymore, they'll write those checks to us and let us do that. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's forthcoming, and it's always great. So the sooner we can have a list of certain things that are needed, the better. So we can make sure and have everything in place or get it ordered or whatever. But you'll be pleased.
Okay, now consider agenda. Consider and approve instructional material allotment, English language arts adoption.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that we approve Marlin ISD administration and staff to seek bids for all Texas Education Agency adoption recommendation from the 2021 cycle of instructional material. Does that cover what you said? Okay.
All right, I second it. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion of it? Not, vote, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed with 2-0, one member absent. Consider and approve of year-round designation.
Let's see, we need B. Don't we?
That's page 33.
I mean, but that's not what he
We don't need any
he
board
didn't
action.
say that.
Okay,
He
you're
didn't.
right. You're right.
He said something about the school. How about, are we gonna approve 9B?
9B,
Mhm.
consider and approve Wi-Fi expenditure.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the extra expenditure as presented. Will that cover you, Adam?
I'll second it. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 2-1. 2-0, one member absent. I think I skipped that one. Now, C, consider and approve year-round designation.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that I move to approve Marlin ISD's designation as a year-round system.
I second it. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 2-0, one absent. Consider and approve 2020-21 school calendar.
Okay, I move that the board accept the intersessional calendar as proposed for the 2021 school year.
I second the motion. All in favor? Raise your hand. Motion passes 2-0, one absent. E, consider and approve 2020-21 organizational chart.
Okay, I move that the board accept the 2021 organizational chart as was presented.
So I second it. Motion, raise your hand. All in favor, motion passed. 2-0, one absent. Consider and approve 2021 budget.
Okay, I move that the board approve the 2021 budget as presented.
I second it. Any other further discussion? Not, raise your hand. 2-0, one absent. Consider and approve budget amendment.
Okay, I move that the board approve the budget amendments as presented.
I second it. Any further discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. In favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 2-0 with one absent. H, consider and approve monthly finance report.
I move that we approve the monthly financial report as presented.
I second it. Any other discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. Raise your hand. Motion passed 2-0 with one absent. Final one,
I move that,
consider and approve monthly check register.
okay, I move that we approve the monthly check register as
I second it.
presented.
Any other further questions? If not, raise your hand. Motion passed 2-0 with one absent. Any other items need to be discussed? If not, we're adjourned.